You've been sitting in the same place too long. You've been thinking the same way for so long that you've started to believe that the way it is the way it will always be. But I came to tell you, change is possible. Not because the world shifts around you, but because God has given you the power to shift within you. You don't have to stay where you are. You don't have to think the way you've been thinking. You don't have to carry the same mindset that has been weighing you down for years. The most powerful thing you will ever possess is not your money, not your position, not your connections. It's your mind. Because if your mind changes, your life changes. If your mind opens, your vision expands. If your mind believes, your future unlocks. The enemy doesn't have to take your car, your house, or your job to stop you. All he has to do is convince you to think small, to see yourself as defeated, to accept the change around your thoughts as normal. That's why the battle is always in your head. The war is not out there, it's in here. Your feet can't walk where your mind refuses to go. Your hands can't build what your mind can't imagine. Your life will only rise to the level of your thinking. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. If you think you're stuck, you'll act stuck. If you think you're broken, you'll live broken. But if you change your mind, you change your life. Sometimes we pray for a new season, but God is waiting for a new mindset. You're asking him for a new opportunity, but he's asking you for a new perspective. You want him to open a door, but you're still thinking like someone who belongs outside. You want to step into the promise, but your mind is still in Egypt while your feet are headed to Canaan. Do you know how powerful your mind really is? Your mind can turn a prison into a palace, or a palace into a prison. Your mind can take the same set of facts and turn them into defeat, or into victory. Two people can go through the same storm. One comes out bitter, the other comes out better. The difference? The mind. That's why transformation doesn't start in your situation. It starts in your thoughts. You can be free in your circumstances before your circumstances change. You can be whole in your thinking before your healing shows up in your body. You can walk in victory while the walls are still standing around Jericho. Because victory always starts in the mind. And let me tell you something. You are one thought away from a breakthrough. One thought away from courage. One thought away from the decision that will break generational patterns and set a new standard for your family. But you've got to stop rehearsing the old script that says you can't, you won't, you're not enough. Tear that script up. Write a new one in your spirit. Say to yourself, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I am more than a conqueror. I was not born to live beneath my potential. You can't control every thought that flies into your head, but you can control which ones you let build a nest. Stop entertaining defeat. Stop inviting doubt to dinner. Stop letting fear sit in the driver's seat of your destiny. Start feeding your mind with truth. Start surrounding yourself with voices that challenge you to believe big. The reason some people never change is because they want God to do all the work while they stay the same inside. But faith without a renewed mind will always fall short. You can shout, you can run, you can cry, but if you go home and think the same way you thought before, nothing changes. God can open the Red Sea, but if your mind still believes the giants are too big, you'll never walk into the promised land. This is your season to take authority over your own mind. Stop giving your thoughts the freedom to sabotage your future. Stop letting your history dictate your destiny. Stop agreeing with the lies that have been whispering to you since childhood. You have the power to evict those thoughts, to replace them with God's truth, to break the cycle. The chains that hold you are not made of metal. They're made of mindset. And the moment you decide, I will not think like that anymore, you start walking out of the prison. It may not happen all at once, but every day you shift your thoughts. You're breaking links in the chain. Every time you choose faith over fear, vision over limitation, courage over comfort, you're stepping closer to freedom. Your mind is the thermostat of your life. If you raise the temperature of your thinking, the environment of your life will rise to match. The reason you've been feeling restless, the reason you can't get comfortable in the place you are, is because your mind is outgrowing your surroundings. God is stretching your thoughts so he can stretch your life. Don't shrink back. Don't let your old way of thinking talk you out of your new season. There's more in you. There's better ahead of you. But you'll never see it until you change your mind. When you look at your life right now, you might be tempted to measure change by what you can see around you. The job you have, the money in your account, the people in your circle, or the doors that have opened or closed. But the truth is, real and lasting change never starts outside. It begins deep within you, in the invisible realm of your thoughts. Before anything shifts in your relationships, your finances, your health, or your opportunities, something has to shift in your mind. Because your mind is the control center of your life, and everything you do flows from what you think. You can be surrounded by opportunities, but if your mind is locked in old patterns, you will miss them. You can be in the presence of blessings, but if your thoughts are still shaped by past failures, you will talk yourself out of receiving them. The way you think creates the filter through which you see the world, and that filter shapes how you respond to everything. If your filter says, "I'm not capable," every challenge will look like a threat instead of a chance to grow. If your filter says, "I'm unloved," you will interpret every action through the lens of rejection. If your filter says, "I'm blessed and favored," you will see opportunities where others see obstacles. That's why people can live through the same season and come out with completely different results. One person comes out stronger, more focused, and more determined, while another comes out bitter, discouraged, and hopeless. The difference wasn't in the season itself. It was in the mindset that navigated. If you want to change the trajectory of your life, you must first change the trajectory of your thoughts. Your life will only rise to the level of your thinking. If you think small, you will live small. If you think defeated, you will live defeated. If you think limited, your potential will shrink to fit the size of your beliefs. But if you think big, if you think in alignment with the truth of who God says you are, your life will begin to stretch to match the capacity of your thought. You cannot consistently live above the level of your beliefs about yourself. You may have moments where circumstances lift you temporarily, but without a renewed mind, you will eventually sabotage your own progress to match the picture you hold in your head. Some people want change in their lives without changing the way they think. They want better results, but refuse to challenge their old patterns. They keep praying for open doors, but they keep thinking like people who belong outside. They want a new chapter, but they keep reading the same old script. You can't enter a new season with an old mindset. If your thinking is tied to your past, you will drag yesterday's limitations into tomorrow's possibility. Changing your mind is not just about thinking positive or ignoring reality. It's about aligning your thoughts with truth, instead of lies, with possibility, instead of impossibility, with purpose instead of aimlessness. It's about looking at your life through the lens of faith instead of fear. It's about refusing to accept a mindset that keeps you stuck when you've been called to move forward. And make no mistake, this is not a passive process. You have to be intentional about renewing your mind. Old thoughts will fight to stay because they've built comfort zones in your head. The habits you've carried for years will try to convince you that this is just the way you are. But you are not a prisoner to your old thoughts, unless you agree to. Every single day, you have the power to reject thoughts that don't serve your destiny and replace them with ones that do. Think about how many times in your life you didn't move forward because of the way you thought. Maybe you told yourself, "I'm not ready," when in fact you were. Maybe you said, "I'm not qualified," when the truth was you could have learned on the way. Maybe you thought, "I've failed before, so I'll fail again," when the reality was, this time you had everything you needed to succeed. The only thing holding you back was not the absence of opportunity. It was the presence of the wrong mindset. If you truly want to change your life, you have to ask yourself, what am I thinking? You have to be honest about the internal conversations you have with yourself. Are you constantly talking yourself out of growth? Or are you talking yourself into courage? Are you rehearsing your failures more than your victories? Are you magnifying problems instead of magnifying possibilities? The mind left unchecked will naturally drift toward fear, doubt, and negativity. That's why change requires discipline, not just in what you do, but in what you allow yourself to think. Here's the truth. You will never go further in life than you go in your mind first. Before a business is built, it's built in someone's imagination. Before a relationship flourishes, it's nurtured in someone's vision. Before a dream comes to life, it's protected in someone's thoughts. Every major shift in history began with a shift in thinking. And if you want a personal breakthrough, you need a personal mental shift. It's easy to blame circumstances for where you are. But circumstances are temporary. Mindsets, if left unchallenged, are permanent. You can change jobs, cities, friends, or habits. But if you don't change your mind, you'll eventually recreate the same struggles in new environments. The scenery changes, but the story stays the same. That's why people leave one relationship and end up in another one with the same problems. They took their old mindset with them. Changing your mind is not about pretending everything is fine. It's about seeing reality through a different lens. It's about acknowledging what is, but believing in what can be. It's about training yourself to think in alignment with your purpose, even when your situation doesn't yet match your vision. When you master your mind, you master your future. Every step toward change begins with a thought. The decision to try again after failure, that's a thought. The courage to step into the unknown, that's a thought. The discipline to keep going when it's hard, that's a thought. When your thoughts change, your choices change. And when your choices change, your life changes. That's why the first step is never out there. The first step is always in here. You are not powerless over your life. You have been given the ability to choose what you think. And in choosing your thoughts, you are choosing your destiny. The world may throw circumstances at you that you didn't choose, but you get to choose how you think about them, how you respond to them, and how you let them shape you. That's where your power is. That's where real change begins. The greatest battle you will ever fight will not be against other people. It will not be against systems. It will not be against the economy. And it will not be against the storms that blow into your life. The greatest battle is fought in the invisible arena of your own mind. Long before you take action, before you speak a word, before you step into a decision, there is a war being waged in your thoughts. If the enemy can win there, he has already won in your life. If you believe the wrong thing, you will live the wrong thing. If you let fear, doubt, and defeat build strongholds in your head, you will act as if you are powerless, even when you are not. You've got to understand that your mind is a battlefield. Every day, thoughts are coming at you. Some planted by your own past experiences, some by the voices of others, some by the enemy himself, and some inspired by the Spirit of God. The war is over. Which thoughts you will accept and which you will reject. Because the thoughts you allow to take root will grow into actions, habits, and ultimately the life you live. It doesn't matter how much potential you have. If the voice in your head keeps telling you you're not enough, you will shrink yourself to fit that life. It doesn't matter how many doors God opens. If you believe you are unworthy, you will hesitate until those doors close. It doesn't matter how much opportunity stands in front of you. If you think you can't, that's why the battle is always in your head. Because whoever wins your mind wins your life. The truth is, most people are not held back by external chains. They're held back by internal ones. You can live in a free country and still be bound in your thinking. You can have resources, connections, and talent. But if your mind is locked in fear, you will act as if you are powerless. You can even be surrounded by encouragement. But if you've made an agreement with defeat in your head, you'll sabotage your own breakthrough before it even begins. You have to stop underestimating the power of your own thoughts. The enemy doesn't have to physically destroy you. He just has to convince you to destroy yourself through your decision. He doesn't have to stop the opportunities from coming. He just has to get you to see yourself as unqualified so you don't take them. That's why he whispers lies, because if you believe them, you'll build your own prison. This battle is subtle because it doesn't always feel like a fight. It can feel like just the way I am, or just how life is. You can be losing the war in your mind without realizing it, because you've grown so comfortable with the thoughts you've been living with. Thoughts of inadequacy, thoughts of fear, thoughts of hopelessness. They've been there so long that you think they belong to you, but they don't. Not every thought that enters your mind is worth keeping. You have to become a gatekeeper for your own headspace. The war in your mind is relentless, which means you can't afford to be passive about it. You can't just hope you'll think better one day. You have to actively challenge every thought that doesn't align with truth. You have to speak against the lies when they come. You have to replace them with words that build your faith instead of feeding your fear. You have to learn to catch yourself when you start going down a road of negative thinking, and turn your thoughts toward a higher truth. Many of the limitations you feel are not real. They are imagined, crafted in the shadows of your fears and past wounds. That's why the mind can be such a dangerous battlefield. If you don't take control of it, it will create realities that don't exist, and keep you living in them. You'll avoid taking risks because of scenarios you've created in your head. You'll hold back from relationships because of hurts that happened years ago, relived over and over in your mind. You'll turn down opportunities because you've convinced yourself it will end in failure, even though you've never tried. You must understand that your actions are the echo of your thoughts. Every step you take is a reflection of a belief you've held. That's why when you lose the battle in your head, it shows up in your habits, your relationships, your choices, and your future. Conversely, when you win the battle in your head, when you choose to believe truth over lies, it will show up in your courage, your progress, your persistence, and your victories. This battle is not fought once and for all. It's fought daily. Every morning when you wake up, you decide who is going to win today's battle for your mind. Will fear get the last word, or will faith? Will your history dictate your thoughts, or will your hope? Will your circumstances determine your mindset? Or will your mindset determine how you face your circumstances? And here's the thing. You don't have to wait until your life looks perfect to start winning the war in your mind. In fact, your situation might not change until your mindset changes first. Too often we wait for our circumstances to improve before we allow ourselves to think differently. But if you wait for everything to be right before you shift your thinking, you'll be waiting forever. You have to start thinking differently in the middle of the storm, in the middle of the struggle, in the middle of the uncertainty. That's when the victory in your mind matters most. Even in moments where you can't control what's happening around you, you can control what you think about it. You may not be able to stop the storm from raging, but you can choose whether you let it sink your hope. You may not be able to change the words someone else spoke over you, but you can choose whether you agree with them or reject them. You may not be able to avoid every challenge, but you can choose whether you see it as an ending or an opportunity. You win the battle in your mind by refusing to surrender your thoughts to whatever comes knocking. You win by guarding what you allow to take root. You win by filling your mind with truth so consistently that lies have no room to live. You win by staying aware that the real fight isn't just about what happens to you. It's about how you think about what happens to you. The enemy knows that if he can keep you thinking small, you will live small. If he can keep you afraid, you will live as if you have no power. If he can keep you focused on your failures, you will stop reaching for success. But when you understand that the battle is in your mind, you stop waiting for someone else to set you free. You take responsibility for your own thoughts. You speak over yourself. You decide which voices get to influence you and which ones you silence. Because the battle in your head will always be the one that determines the outcome of your life. If you win there, you can lose everywhere else and still come back stronger. But if you lose there, even the best circumstances will feel like defeat. Every breakthrough you've ever dreamed of is on the other side of a mental victory. And the moment you make up your mind to fight and win that war, you've already taken the first step toward everything you've been believing. Your mind has the power to turn the same situation into a prison or into a place of freedom. And it all depends on how you choose to see it. Two people can walk through the same season, face the same challenges, even experience the same loss, and yet one comes out broken while the other comes out stronger. What makes the difference? It's not always the resources they had, the help they received, or the circumstances they faced. It's the mindset they carried through it. You can be in a small place and still think big, and your big thinking will eventually lead you out. You can be in a large open place with every opportunity in front of you. But if your mind is closed and fearful, you will stay bound even with the doors wide open. That's because freedom doesn't start with the removal of obstacles. It starts with the removal of limiting beliefs. And captivity doesn't always look like bars. It can look like repeating the same thoughts that convince you there's no way out. There are people who have lived through years of struggle, yet carry peace and joy because their minds are anchored in hope. And there are others who have everything they once prayed for, yet live in constant dissatisfaction because their minds are trapped in comparison, fear, or pride. That's the power of mindset. It determines the climate of your soul regardless of the weather around you. When your mindset is healthy, you can walk through seasons of lack and still believe that abundance is possible. You can endure seasons of pain and still believe that purpose will come from it. You can face closed doors and still believe that the right one will open in time. A healthy mind is not blind to the reality of challenges. It simply refuses to let challenges define what is possible. It refuses to surrender its hope to the temporary conditions of life. On the other hand, a defeated mindset can take even the best opportunities and turn them into burdens. It can look at blessings and still complain. It can be surrounded by love and still feel lonely. It can be in a place of provision and still fear lack. Because when the mind is in chains, nothing outside can truly set it free. You can hand a prisoner the keys to the door, but if they've been locked up in their thoughts long enough, they might not even try to leave. That's why the renewal of your mind is not a luxury, it's a necessity. If you don't actively work on shifting your perspective, you will unknowingly allow yourself to live in mental and emotional confinement even while your life moves forward. You can change cities, change careers, change relationships, and still find yourself in the same place emotionally because you never changed the thoughts that shaped your reality. The environment may change, but the internal prison follows you everywhere you go. Some of you are frustrated because you thought a new season would fix everything. You thought if you got the job, you'd finally feel confident. You thought if you got into a relationship, you'd finally feel whole. You thought if you moved to a new city, you'd finally find peace. But the truth is, you took your mind with you. If you didn't change it, nothing else could truly change. A negative mindset will poison any place you enter, no matter how promising it looks from the outside. But the opposite is just as true. A transformed mindset can bring life to the most challenging places. You can be like Joseph in prison, still interpreting dreams and preparing for the palace. You can be like Paul in chains, still writing letters that will change the world. You can be like Ruth in a foreign land, still believing that your next step could lead to redemption. The environment may be restrictive, but a free mind can turn restriction into preparation. You have to understand that your mindset is a lens, and everything you see will be colored by it. If the lens is tinted with fear, you'll see danger in every opportunity. If it's tinted with doubt, you'll see impossibility in every challenge. If it's tinted with bitterness, you'll see betrayal in every relationship. But if the lens is tinted with faith, you'll see potential in the impossible. If it's tinted with gratitude, you'll see blessings in the midst of storms. If it's tinted with resilience, you'll see every setback as a setup for a comeback. This is why two people can go through the same heartbreak. One becomes bitter, the other becomes wise. Two people can lose the same job. One gives up, the other starts a business. Two people can face the same diagnosis. One sinks into despair, the other fights with hope and determination. The same circumstances, but completely different outcomes. Because the prison or the key was never in the event. It was in the mind. Sometimes the most dangerous thing in your life is not the storm you are facing, but the story you are telling yourself about it. You may tell yourself that this storm is proof you are cursed, or you can tell yourself it's proof you are being prepared for something greater. You may tell yourself that this delay means God has forgotten you, Or you can tell yourself that it means he's positioning you for the perfect time. The facts may be the same, but your interpretation changes everything. Your mind can be trained to see differently, but it takes intentional work. You can't just hope that your perspective will improve on its own. You have to feed it with truth, starve it of lies, and stretch it with new ways of thinking. You have to challenge your old narratives and replace them with ones that align with where you're going, not where you've been. The problem is many people protect their prison instead of breaking out of it. They defend their excuses, justify their fears, and cling to the comfort of what they've always known, even if what they've known has been limiting them for years. It feels safer to stay in familiar chains than to step into unfamiliar freedom. But until you are willing to let go of the thoughts that built your prison, you will never experience the power of a mind that is truly free. And when you do change your mindset, you begin to see that the prison was never as strong as it felt. You realize the walls were made of words you believed. The bars were built from fears you never tested, and the lock was turned by lies you never questioned. The moment you stop agreeing with them is the moment you step into freedom. This is why mindset is everything. It is both the gatekeeper and the guide of your life. It will either confine you to the boundaries of your past or release you into the possibilities of your future. The choice is yours every single day. Will you see this season through the lens of limitation or through the lens of possibility? Will you build your life around the prison of old beliefs or the open space of renewed vision? Faith is powerful, but faith alone will not produce the fullness of what God has placed in you. If your mind is still trapped in old patterns of thinking, you can pray with passion. You can worship with tears. You can fast for days. But if you walk away and think like the same fearful, unworthy, or defeated version of yourself, you will talk yourself out of the very blessings you've been believing for. Faith is meant to move mountains, but a mind stuck in unbelief will keep you standing at the base of the mountain, never taking the first step to climb. God can open the door, but if you still see yourself as someone who doesn't belong in the room, you will hesitate, shrink back, or even walk away. He can bring the right people into your life, but if you still think you are unworthy of love, you will sabotage those relationships. He can give you opportunities that others only dream about, but if your thoughts are still locked in fear, you will settle for less than what's available. That's why the renewing of the mind is not separate from faith. It is the companion to it. Faith reaches for what God has promised, and a renewed mind is what helps you walk in it, without turning back. Faith without a renewed mind is like planting seeds in soil filled with weeds. The seeds have the potential to grow, but the environment keeps choking them. You can receive a word from God, but if your thoughts are still filled with doubt, insecurity, and old beliefs, you'll question the word until you talk yourself out of it. Your faith will ignite the vision, but your mindset will determine whether you nurture it or neglect it. Some people keep asking God for more while doing nothing to prepare their minds for it. They want abundance, but they think like someone in lack. They want influence, but they think like someone who has no voice. They want to be leaders, but they think like followers afraid to stand alone. You cannot walk in the fullness of your calling if your mind is still living in the limitations of your past. There's a reason the children of Israel could be delivered from Egypt in a single night, but it took 40 years for a generation to enter the promised land. Their bodies left slavery, but their minds didn't. They saw miracles, but they still fought like captives. They had the promise in front of them, but their mindset kept telling them the giants were too big, the walls too high, the battle too hard. Faith was present. They believed God existed. They saw his power, but without a renewed mind, they kept longing for Egypt instead of marching into Canaan. This is what happens when your faith and your mindset are out of alignment. Faith pushes you toward the promise, but your old thinking keeps pulling you back toward the familiar. Faith tells you to step out, but your mind tells you to stay safe. Faith tells you that you are more than a conqueror, but your thoughts remind you of every past failure. If you do not renew your mind, you will constantly feel the tension between what you believe God can do and what you believe about yourself. A renewed mind doesn't happen by accident. It happens by intention. It means deciding every day to think in agreement with what God says about you, even when your feelings tell you something different. It means rehearsing His promises more than you rehearse your fears. It means training yourself to respond to challenges with "I can" instead of "I can't." It means disciplining your thoughts so they serve your destiny instead of sabotaging it. There are people who are praying for blessings they are not mentally prepared to manage. You can ask God for a business, but if your mindset is still fearful of responsibility, you'll bury the talent like the servant in the parable. You can ask Him for a relationship, but if your thoughts are still shaped by insecurity and distrust, you will destroy the connection before it matures. You can ask for influence, but if you think small, you will use big opportunities for small purposes. The blessing may come, but without a renewed mind, it will slip through your hands. God will never bless you beyond your capacity to manage it, and your capacity begins in your thinking. That's why before He changes your situation, He often changes your mind. Before He takes you into a bigger place, He teaches you to think bigger. Before He increases your influence, He increases your vision. Faith opens the door, but your mindset determines how far you go through it. Sometimes we blame God for delays that are actually the result of an unprepared mind. You might be saying, "Lord, why haven't you brought it yet?" And He's saying, "Why haven't you thought differently yet?" Because if He gave it to you now, you might reject it, mishandle it, or waste it. The very thing you're praying for could become a burden if you receive it without the mindset to carry it. Faith is not just believing God can do it. It's preparing your thoughts as if He's already done it. If you're praying for financial increase, start thinking like a steward instead of a spender. If you're believing for healing, start thinking like a healthy person who honors their body. If you're asking for leadership, start thinking like someone who takes responsibility, not someone who waits for others to make the decisions. The preparation of the mind is an act of faith in itself. This is why people with great faith can still live small lives. They never allowed their thoughts to rise to the level of their belief. They shout over the promise on Sunday, but live in fear on Monday. They speak big dreams but make small decisions. They believe God can move mountains, but when He hands them a shovel, they question if they're capable of digging. Faith gives you the vision. A renewed mind gives you the courage and clarity to act on it. You cannot keep thinking like a slave and expect to live like a king. You cannot keep thinking like a victim and expect to walk in victory. You cannot keep thinking like a follower and expect to lead. Every new level God calls you to will require a new level of thinking. And if you try to bring your old mindset into your new season, it will crumble under the weight of the blessing. When your faith and your mind work together, nothing can stop you. You will see opportunities where others see obstacles. You will take steps others are afraid to take. You will endure challenges without losing hope. You will walk into rooms knowing you belong there, not because of arrogance, but because you have aligned your thinking with the truth of who God says you are. You will not just believe for the promise, you will think, act, and live like someone who already possesses. The transformation that happens when faith meets a renewed mind is unstoppable. Faith pulls from heaven. A renewed mind builds on earth. Faith declares God will do it. A renewed mind declares, and I am ready for it. Faith believes in the unseen. A renewed mind organizes, plans, and prepares for the moment it becomes seen. Together they create the momentum that carries you into everything you've been praying for. You are not at the mercy of every thought that enters your mind. Thoughts will come uninvited, but you have the authority to decide which ones you let stay. You are the gatekeeper of your mind, and what you allow in will shape the way you see yourself, the choices you make, and the life you live. If you allow fear, doubt, and insecurity to take up residence, they will start to dictate your actions, influence your habits, and set the boundaries of your potential. But if you fill your mind with truth, courage, and vision, they will expand your possibilities and empower you to step into your destiny. Many people don't realize they have the power to reject a thought. They think every idea that pops into their head has to be entertained, examined, and believed. But not every thought is worth your time. Some are sent to distract you, some are sent to discourage you, and some are sent to derail you entirely. If you accept them without resistance, they will grow roots and start shaping your reality, whether or not they are true. That's why you must be intentional about what you allow to stay in your mind. You can't always stop a bird from flying over your head, but you can stop it from building a net. In the same way, you may not be able to stop certain thoughts from coming, but you can stop them from settling in and becoming a part of your mindset. The longer you let a thought sit unchallenged, the more power it gains. That's why it's crucial to catch it early, before it begins to influence your emotions, your decisions, and your future. Authority over your thoughts means you don't have to be a passive victim to mental patterns that keep you stuck. You can decide this thought doesn't align with where I'm going, and replace it with one that does. You can say this belief doesn't reflect who I am anymore, and choose a better one. You can refuse to keep repeating narratives in your head that weaken your faith, drain your hope, and limit your vision. The truth is, your mind will believe what you tell it most often. If you constantly feed it reminders of your failures, it will begin to expect failure in the future. If you feed it thoughts of inadequacy, it will shrink your confidence until you stop taking risks. But if you feed it affirmations of your identity, your ability, and your purpose, it will begin to look for proof of those truths in your daily life. You will start to see opportunities you once overlooked, solutions you once ignored, and possibilities you once thought were impossible. Taking authority over your thoughts doesn't mean you'll never have negative ones. It means you will not give them the final word. You may hear the voice of fear, but you will answer it with courage. You may feel the pull of discouragement, but you will counter it with hope. You may be tempted to dwell on the problem, but you will turn your focus to the solution. You take control by refusing to let your thoughts run unchecked, by redirecting them toward the direction you want your life to go. This authority also requires you to be careful about the voices you allow into your mind. Thoughts are not formed in isolation. They are shaped by what you consume, who you listen to, and what you meditate on. If you surround yourself with negativity, you will think negatively. If you feed your mind with gossip, fear, and cynicism, that's the language your thoughts will speak. But if you surround yourself with faith-filled voices, wisdom, and truth, your thoughts will begin to reflect that environment. Guarding your thoughts means guarding your input. It may require turning off certain conversations, limiting your time in environments that drain your spirit, or being selective about the media you consume. It means intentionally seeking out what will strengthen your faith and expand your vision instead of what will diminish them. Your mind is too valuable to be a dumping ground for every opinion, fear, or distraction that tries to enter. Taking control of your thoughts is not about living in denial. It's about choosing focus. You acknowledge the reality of challenges, but you choose to think in ways that position you for victory instead of defeat. You understand the seriousness of obstacles, but you refuse to give them more mental energy than you give to solutions and possibility. You accept that setbacks happen, but you decide they will not dictate your future. You have to recognize that the battle for your thoughts is not a one-time event. It's an ongoing discipline. Every day, new situations will bring new thoughts. Some will align with your purpose, and some will try to pull you away from it. If you don't actively take authority over them, your mind will drift toward whatever is easiest, which often means whatever is most familiar. And for many people, the familiar is filled with fear, worry, and self-doubt. But you can retrain your mind to make faith the default. You can practice replacing fearful thoughts with bold ones, until courage becomes your natural response. You can replace feelings of inadequacy with reminders of your capability until confidence becomes a habit. It may feel difficult at first, but over time your new way of thinking will feel more natural than the old patterns ever did. This kind of authority changes everything, because your thoughts set the tone for your actions. If you think you can, you are more likely to try. If you think you're worthy, you are more likely to accept opportunities. If you think your future is bright, you are more likely to make decisions that move you toward it. Your thoughts are not just reactions to your life. They are the architects of it. You have to decide that your mind will not be a battlefield where the enemy wins every time. You have to decide that your head will not be a revolving door for lies, fear, and hopelessness. You have to decide that you will live in alignment with truth, even if it means confronting and evicting thoughts that have been with you for years. There is power in choosing your thoughts on purpose. When fear tries to tell you that you can't, you choose to say. When doubt tries to convince you to quit, you choose to say, I will keep going. When insecurity tries to shrink you, you choose to say, I belong here. These are not just empty affirmations. They are declarations that reshape your mindset, and in turn reshape your reality. The mind will always produce fruit from whatever seeds you plant. If you plant seeds of faith, courage, and hope, your actions will reflect them. If you plant seeds of fear, worry, and defeat, your actions will reflect that too. Authority over your thoughts means being intentional about what you plant, knowing that your life will grow from it. When you understand the power you have over your own mind, you stop waiting for external permission to think differently. You stop letting the voices of others override the truth you know deep inside. You stop drifting with whatever thoughts come your way, and start steering your mind toward the destination you want to reach. That is the place where real transformation begins, when you choose your thoughts instead of letting them choose you. So after all that has been said, understand this: your mind is the gateway to every victory you will ever experience. You can pray, you can fast, you can shout, but if your thinking is still chained to fear, to defeat, to the memory of what went wrong, you will never walk in the fullness of what has been promised to you. But if you dare to believe that change is possible, if you dare to take authority over every thought that does not align with truth, if you dare to see yourself as God sees you, then there is no force in hell that can stop you. Your future is not waiting on your circumstances to change. It is waiting on you to change the way you think. And when your mind shifts, your life will follow.